Welcome back to the Religious Treehouse. I'm Jody.
And I'm Matthew.
How are you today, Matthew?
I am doing good. I've watched some great movies lately, and I'm excited about that. So I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am doing phenomenal. I went outside, went on a walk, got some fresh air,
Nice.
and I am feeling refreshed and rejuvenated for today's conversation.
Yeah,
Can
yeah.
you t- can you tell us a little bit of what we'll be talking about?
Of course. One of the movies that I've recently watched and rewatched was Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. So I think we figured that we'd try something new this week, and instead of diving into a religious idea or a text in the Bible or something like that, we'd talk about a movie. So today be talking about, I think this is 1999, the 1999 version of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, written by Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice, with Donny Osmond, uh, Joan Collins or Joan River, Joan Collins, Richard Attenborough. Great names. I'm excited for it. It's one of my favorite movies. I don't know a ton about musicals. I know like I've seen like four musicals in my life, but this is definitely one of my favorites. So I'm very excited about this. What are your initial thoughts, Jody?
So, I'm a huge musical fan, but I had never seen this until 2 days ago. And I love Donny Osmond. I mean, he voiced Li Shang in Mulan, and like I had a huge crush, so I was like, okay, I can get down with some Donny. And the way this movie was nothing I expected
Yeah.
and was the most fantastical movie I think I've ever watched. It truly was Technicolor,
Very bright, very, very bright.
very bright, which kind of brings up, is this a musical intended for adults, for children?
Yeah, no, I think so. If I remember, and if you haven't seen this movie yet, like go watch it. Like you didn't hear it here, but I think there's like a bootleg version on YouTube that you can watch for free. So go check it out. It's only like an hour and 15 minutes. It's great. It's worth it. I'd rather you guys go watch that than listen to this podcast episode. But after you listen to that, come back and listen here. But no, I think if I remember correctly, I don't know all the history of it. I think Andrew Lloyd Webber made this when he was like 17 as like a children's musical, like a 15-minute children's thing, and then it kind of expanded to be what it has become. So I think this was originally made for children, and like that's seen throughout the movie. We'll talk about like how the children in the audience are involved. So I think this could be classified as a children's movie, but like there are some adult costume choices, I guess,
Yeah,
and some adult choices that are made. Like it's fun for the whole family, is what I would call this.
I like that. Fun for the whole family. Because when we talk about like how bright and colorful it is, it immediately reminded me of like a child's playroom.
Yeah,
And
no, I get that.
it just the initial bright colors, but that may be to accentuate his beautiful coat.
Yeah.
But let's not start there. Let's start at the beginning.
First of all, this is talking about the story of Joseph and his brothers, the sons of Jacob, from the story of Genesis, to quote the narrator, not long after the Bible began. And it's talking about, I think Genesis 37 through 50 is the numbers that you'll generally get. The story of Joseph is, uh, and Jacob and all those are kind of spread out throughout the end of Genesis. But I think 37 through 50 kind of gets the main stories of it. And I think with movies depicting religion, especially movies depicting the Bible, I think it's important to take the movie as its own thing. I think a lot of, especially Christians that critique these types of movies, say, "Oh, they messed that up. That's not from the Bible," and they take creative liberties. I think you have to take creative liberties. So I don't think the point of these movies are to act as a translation of the text. I think that misses the point. I think it's creating this new thing using a base text, and we can talk about what choices it makes with the base text. But I think we should appreciate it as its own thing that uses these base texts, and it also provides a good starting point of where we can talk about these base texts and like what those are talking about historically speaking. So I think we should be appreciating it as a film, not as a translation. But I'm not going to be able to stop myself saying, "Oh, they made a choice here. This is different in the in the movie than in the Bible," which obviously it's going to do, and I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, musicals do that all the time. West Side Story, it's Romeo and Juliet. But
Mm-hmm.
Romeo and Juliet didn't have the sharks and the jets. Wicked is Wizard of Oz. Like they take base stories and they expand the world through
Mm-hmm.
song and
Yeah,
dance. And that's magical.
yeah,
But definitely, there were some things in there that even I was like, where is that biblically?
yeah.
So,
I will say what I noticed mostly they took things out. There are things in the Bible that they kind of skipped over. And I didn't see as much. And like there are of course are places, but I didn't see as much where they inserted things, more so where they kind of skipped over things. But we'll talk about that, I'm sure.
yeah. So the movie opens up with children rambunctiously running to their auditorium. They're talking, they are excited for whatever is about to happen today, which I noted the children every time they went on and off. Like anytime the children appeared, I noted. And then they're called to attention by a very modestly dressed woman. And we see no sign of Donny Osmond yet. And
Yeah.
that was important to me. I was like, where's Donny?
Yeah, no, it's interesting because it's told in a school setting. Like this is a school play that looks like what's going on, and we see the teachers throughout the play like act in the musical. We see the piano player. She comes out as Potiphar's wife. We'll talk about later. So I think it's really interesting that we see all of the teachers like in that establishing shot, and then throughout the movie we see them put in their actual roles with all their makeup and all that stuff. Except I don't think the narrator is in that establishing scene where she kind of comes in. So it's all the teachers are part of the play except the narrator. The narrator is this outside force, this outside character. I think that's interesting.
Yeah. And then she does come in, though. She comes in after everyone else, though.
Yeah.
Comes in like rushing. She's wearing this really cool two-piece outfit and a blazer over it. And I'm kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, that outfit is chic. She
Mm-hmm.
slays. And she begins to sing the prologue directly to the children, and the children are enamored. And a quote that stuck up out to me from that was she's singing her prologue and saying, "All that I can say can be told another way in the story of a boy whose dreams came true, and it could be you." Because she'd been talking about dreams and
Mm-hmm.
how some people reach them, some people don't. But I really liked when she said, "All I can say can be told another way." And it kind of reminded me of the Bible itself, how there are lessons within the Bible that are told not directly, but through stories.
Yeah. No, it's definitely she's putting on this interpretive. I think this is me, being a nerd here, but this is what I think is happening. I feel like it's not only a retelling, but it's kind of like an embodied realization of what's happening. Like it's clearly asking ourselves, or clearly asking the viewers to put ourselves into the story and become active interpreters. And we see that all of as the children go from their seats to in the middle of the play, as the teachers and stuff are all active participants in the play. It's not that they're retelling the story, it's asking us to place ourselves in the story. And and, we become active interpreters throughout the story. And we see this through artwork too. Arthur Zizek, in his Esther illuminated manuscript, writes himself into the story. I think this is from the early 50s, late 40s. I don't remember. But it's a beautiful piece of artwork where he inserts himself into the story. We're all inserting ourselves into these texts, these biblical texts, and interpreting it as our own. And I think I see that beauty. That's what I really like about how this whole musical is formed. How it's all about these interactions of us putting ourselves into the story, and it's not telling. We're not looking at history. We're not looking at what happened. We're looking at interpretations, our own interpretations of what's happening. And then the fact that the narrator wasn't one of those teachers that we see at the beginning, and she's in her normal dress the entire time. She acts as this kind of outside voice, like guiding people, telling them how to interpret the story. And I think that's really interesting. And I think that is worth noting.
Yes.
I don't know if you see that too or if you disagree, but
No, I definitely see that. I was I was coming at it from a biblical standpoint this time. This time
yeah.
I was coming from the Bible. Um, I definitely see that. And she sings this prologue and enters in Danny Osmond
Joseph.
in a puff of smoke. And he begins to speak to the children directly, wearing all white.
Mhm.
And they are very enamored and they're very much paying attention. And he's talking. I couldn't figure out when he was saying, like, any dream will do. I know that's like the overarching maybe story,
Yeah.
but at one point I was like, oh, maybe he's talking about his dream, like you looking at your dreams specifically. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the message of this, like the most basic message of this is follow your dreams. Like whatever dream you have, it'll do. Follow your dreams. That's a nice, neat message. And it's that we're following Joseph, who's known for his dream and dream interpretation. Like it makes sense that we're following this guy to talk about following your dreams.
So then he and the narrator kind of have a little moment
Mhm.
where she like they acknowledge each other. He leaves out of the back auditorium doors and she heads towards the stage.
Yeah, and this is when it really starts. I think like there's the kind of introduction. Hey, watch out for dreams. This is what you should be thinking about during this whole play, dreams. And then we're kind of starting here with uh, Jacob and Sons and Jacob's coat or Joseph's coat, right? Is that
Yes.
next? Cool.
Yeah. Jacob and Sons is next, where we are introduced to Joseph's entire, well, not entire family. There's no introduction of Jacob's wives, or any women really.
Yeah, no, there's a fun line which adds to the adult aspect of it. Like, is this an adult film or a kid's film? But the line, his sons and wives used to call him dad, which like is just funny. It's a silly line. Like, and this movie's full of like silly little one-liners. It's like, oh, I would go over a kid's head, but it's just funny. Um, and yeah, I think so. Going back to the Bible, we meet the entire family at the end. When spoilers, we're doing spoilers here. Where at the end he brings his entire family to Egypt, or Joseph brings his entire family, and I think it numbers 70, which is an intentional number. But no, we don't meet any wives, and there's no woman. There's not a single woman named in this entire movie. We're not just giving this film praise, we're also going to critique it and find its mistakes. Like, come on, at least name one woman. There's more women named in this story in the biblical account than in the film account.
Any name. Any name will do.
Any
Any
name
dream
will
will,
do.
that's my dream. That's
Yeah.
my dream. We get a name in whatever remake we get of Joseph. A couple of things I noted about the costuming and the makeup choices. All 11 of Joseph's brothers had eyeliner,
Yeah.
and Donny Osmond had none. And the other thing I noticed was that Joseph and Benjamin were the only two not wearing the larger hats. Benjamin is wearing a yarmulke, I
Mhm.
noted later. But I feel that was intentional because as you and I talked off podcast, Joseph and Benjamin are full brothers.
Yeah, no, Joe, the reason that Benjamin gets such a big point at the end is because Joseph is Jacob's favorite son, as we learn in this song here. And it stands to reason, I don't think it's ever explicitly mentioned, but it stands to reason that Benjamin would be Jacob's second favorite son because he also came from Jacob's favorite wife, Rachel. So yeah, Benjamin is going to be the second favorite, probably.
So yeah, so really it's a good costuming choice because it's just subtle enough for you to be like, oh, these two are different than the rest of them.
Yeah, it's really easy to differentiate all of the brothers based on just what they're wearing.
Yeah. So then we get to Joseph's coat,
Mhm.
which is a fun, and just so everyone knows, at this point, the music has been what you would expect. It has been predictable, and it's still going to be predictable for a few songs. But we get into Joseph's coat, and the children are watching politely. I love the coat. I think the coat is iconic. I want the coat. I should have worn something rainbow for this episode because that coat is out of this world. And
Yeah,
it's full of so many colors.
yeah.
How many colors would you say it's full of?
I would say if I were to count all the colors that they mentioned, I would say there's like 29 colors. No, I think they mentioned 29 different colors. I didn't like count too carefully, but that's about what I got. Oh, would you like a fun fact that might crush your soul a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's go into the Bible. Like this
Oh,
coat is mentioned in the Bible in Genesis 37. And the term we have there is the ketonet tasim. Ketonet is what we would expect that we know that word. This is a familiar word. It means a robe or a tunic of some sort. Pasim is kind of a unique word. We don't really know what that means. That word, which also comes along with this phrase, ketonet pasim, only appears once in another place in the Bible, and that's in 2 Samuel 13. And there it's referred to as the royal outfit of a princess. So the reason that we call this multicolored, this is a colorful robe, is because of a later Greek translation that translates it into colorful or multicolored, or however you want to do it. But in the original, I think I have problems with the phrase original Hebrew, but in the Hebrew, it likely doesn't refer to something colorful. It's just an ornamental coat, a long sleeved coat. The color aspect of it is a later addition.
hey, you know what? My soul's not too crushed. I
Cool.
figured that was maybe part of it. So that leaves us open for more interpretations of what the coat looks like.
Yeah.
Someone give me a peacock coat.
Yeah. Notably, in both stories, we don't get this in the musical, but in both stories, there's a character named Tamar that plays a fairly large role in the very near areas of it. So perhaps these two stories are related in some sense, but that's neither here nor there for this movie.
And the coat isn't just a coat, guys, it's also a prop. The brothers each grab an edge and they use it to like kind of twirl Donny Osmond around. And it's so fun. The choreography in this movie is so exciting. I stage directions and I yeah. But the children really get into it and they come on stage and become part of the production. And I'm not sure if that's because like the kids are like if that's to signify like when the kids in the movie are finally seeing themselves in it to like really emphasize those points or if that was just a directorial choice to add to the choreography and keep reminding us, oh, it's a kids show they're putting on.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. Like we're being constantly reminded this is for kids, and it's been reproduced in a lot of kids' musicals and churches and synagogues and camps and stuff like that. It's a very it's a very easy film or easy musical to kind of reproduce comparatively, I'd think. Um, I think this is us inserting ourselves into the story. That's what it's asking us to do to become active interpreters. That's just my take from the film.
I like it. No, I think you're definitely right. And that I was jealous. I was like, why couldn't that be me? When
Yeah.
I was 4 years old in 1999, I could have held a part of Joseph's coat. Should have been me.
They're one of those weird random fun facts that I know about this. They're all like 8 or 9 year olds, except for one 4 year old, which is uh, Maria Friedman, the narrator. It's her son. So there's only, and we see her sing to him in the first song. But like all of them are like 8 or 9 years old ish, except for
Okay.
one little kid. So you were too young. You didn't miss out. Your parents didn't like crush your dreams by
I
not getting
just,
you to do this one.
I mean, come on. Play a musical with Donny Osmond.
Yeah.
I My life would have been different, but it's fine. It's totally fine. So we've started to see a rift between Joseph and his brothers
Mhm.
because he gets a special coat. because
Yeah.
he looks so good. And
It's
they're
a
like
nice
so
coat.
jealous of it.
Yeah. It's a good coat. Pretty. 10
We get
stars.
into
Well, 11 stars, I guess.
what a segue, because we then get into Joseph's dreams, which includes, was it 11 sheaves of, no,
Mm,
yeah, 11 sheaves of corn.
11. Yeah.
Okay.
Representing his brothers.
So yes, Joseph has a dream and kind of starts to shade his brothers. He's like, "Listen, I saw 11 sheaves of corn. I've 11 sheaves of corn, and I think they were yours, and they were kind of small.
Yeah.
And that's so sad for you.
And
But
they're all bowing down to Joseph.
yeah." And he's like, "And I must be meant for government because I also saw 11 stars in the sky."
Yeah. That also bow down to him, like
They
representing the
bow down.
brothers and uh, I think we all in the Bible we also get the sun and the moon bowing down to Joseph, representing Rachel and Jacob. In the Bible, Jacob's a little like, come on, man, like you don't need to, like that's a little too much. But I'm like, but he's still like, you're still my favorite, but like tone it back a little.
Tone it down. Yeah, and the it's such an extra scene because the sheaves and stars are represented by ballerinas.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, that was the first time I was like, this is a little unexpected. That
yeah, yeah.
but then the brothers start to talk about like what the why does Joseph like his dreams, like what if they do come true? And you see the narrator get pulled into their emotions. And at one point she like looks seduced by
She she's having the time of her life.
she really is.
She's just enjoying herself. She's kind of like I feel like she's kind of like the Fates. Like that's kind of her role. She's just there to like tell the story and have a good time while she's doing it.
Yeah. She is both apart from it, but in it still, like the moments of acknowledgement between the narrator and the characters are some of my
Mhm.
favorite.
Definitely, yeah. So next up, we get Joseph being sold into slavery. Oh
Oh,
no, because the brothers say we should kill him. We should kill this guy. And then they think, wait, we can make some money off this. So instead, they sell him to the Ishmaelites.
and the entire time they're wearing glasses because they're doing sunglasses because they're doing something shady.
Yeah, which
And
I've
even
never
the
caught. That's interesting. Yeah.
yeah, even the narrator's wearing sunglasses and she has her coat thrown over her shoulder. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, it's hot. It's hot where they're going for selling their brother, which I looked up in the Bible. It was 20 shekels.
Yeah,
I don't know.
sure.
I wanted to know. I wanted to know what the going rate of a boy who fought a cobra was.
Yeah, a cobra that is just a hand puppet. It's probably my favorite scene in the movie where Joseph is wearing a hand puppet that's a cobra, and they like and it, like the cobra like or his hand tries to like fight him. It's so funny. Like there's just those like little jokes that are so good throughout this movie.
Yeah, it's one of those really fun little touches because the look away and then the shocked look back and then we
Yeah.
fight.
um, but then we get another area of critique in this song. At least I have an area of critique which I think is worth critiquing. Where at the very end of the song, the narrator ends with "sold to be a slave," which you know we're supposed to be sad, and then whoever directed this was I don't even know who did that, but they made a horrible choice. They pan to two black children, and it's like that's just a horrible choice to be making. That's like or there's just like it's the 90s like I guess but like there's just like some like racist little bits and pieces here and there. It's like come on, we shouldn't have done that.
You didn't need to pan to the children at that part.
We didn't need to pan to the children at that part.
We didn't need to. No, we very much could have just watched Joseph be dragged off, and that made me think of the stage because I know part of the stage was rotating,
Mm-hmm.
and I wonder how many stages they had. I should have looked it up
Yeah, no, it was
because it
good a
rotates
lot.
at different parts, like not the same. Yeah. But it's so again, the musical has been very predictable until here, guys. Like if this is where it gets weird because they have to go tell their dad that Joseph, well, okay, first of all, they kill a goat and they
Yeah.
get blood on the coat. And then they have to go tell their father they sold his son. Well, not sold his son. That he's dead.
Is it?
Um,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm gearing myself up to say, guys, it turns into a Western.
No, they sell Joseph and then they bloody up his coat, bring it back to his dad and say, "Oh no, he died. Oh no." Like they're not going to admit that they sold him. Uh, and then they sing that there's one more angel in heaven. There's one more star in the sky.
There's one more angel in heaven.
And it's so good.
There's
It's such a twist of just like music. Uh,
I sorry. I was flabbergasted the first time because I'm like, okay, Jacob and Son. It's like you because it opens on the set first
mhm.
and the music doesn't start right away, and you're kind of like, why are there cactuses? Why is there a Jacob and Son sign written in Western type? And
Yeah,
he starts singing, and then you're like, oh, we've taken a turn. So it's a Western parody song.
definitely. And one of my favorite lines is the closing line. It says, like, Father, remember the things that he stood for. And usually when he says that, it's like truth and justice never die. But in this one, he says, Father, remember the things he stood for, like democracy never die. And I think like that's just funny. Like it's a laugh moment. It's made to be laughed. But I think that's what we're doing. This I'm going back to my interpretation mode. I think this is what we do with the Bible. I think so many people will insert like modern concepts like democracy into the Bible to justify what's going on in our lives. And that's fine. That's great. That's how these texts have meaning. But the fact that we see things like that so clearly, I think is just so funny and so relevant.
Yeah, they really they lay out a lot of things that do happen in a very plain way,
Yeah.
like a lot of beliefs and stuff. And that is the end of Act. No, no, we're not at the end of Act 1 here. Now we go to Potiphar.
Right. But before that, I want to mention something
Okay.
because this is where the musical takes a detour from the Bible. So let's go into the Bible real quick. Right here, we have a story of Judah and Tamar. Remember the Tamar that I
Yeah.
mentioned? So we have this chapter in the Bible. I think it's just one chapter, and it just feels so out of place. Like it feels like it doesn't have anything to do with what's going on around. And this is partially because, and I'm sure we've mentioned this in other episodes, that Genesis is a compilation of multiple texts. So this Joseph story is likely three different texts coming together, merging together. So you get funky things every once in a while, and this is one of them. Um, and here we have Judah, who's one of Joseph's brothers, who got Tamar for his son Er. And Er was wicked and then killed by God. So Judah told her brother-in-law Onan to impregnate her, and Onan said no. Obviously, when you say no to that, God kills you. So Tamar is a widow, and she goes off and does her life for a while. And then Judah's wife dies, and he's sad and stuff. And she pretends to be a prostitute, and Judah then impregnates her. And then he learns like 3 months later, oh no, my daughter-in-law Tamar has become a prostitute who's pregnant. We should kill her because that's what you do. And then she comes and's like, but it was you that impregnated me. And he's like, oh my goodness, you're so right. My bad. And then the story moves back on to the Joseph story. That wasn't in the musical.
What a fun side story.
Yeah. No, it was an event. I
That is
would
what
have loved
dramas are made of.
I would have loved a song about that. I think it would have been random and no one would understand what was going on, but like the Bible nerds would be like, that's right. Thank you for including this.
Yeah. No, that and if John Chu, if you're going to do a more adult version of this, we got Matthew's got some ideas. Um, that'd be actually a really interesting thing to see, like as like a transitional scene because you go from where are they?
They're in
Jacob.
Canaan right now.
Okay. So yeah, it'd be like a good transitional scene to go from Canaan to Egypt.
Yeah.
Just some, philandering. So we start to see Egypt on the
Hmm.
stage, and the set changes very drastically, guys. So they dip your toe in the water with the Western. And then they're like, here is a futuristic triangle Illuminati set. And it is black and white,
Very clean.
very clean. It was giving spaceship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So this is we're introduced to Potiphar. And Potiphar is one of the Pharaoh's officials who the Ishmaelites sell Joseph to in Egypt. So Joseph is one of Potiphar's servants or whatever. We'll call him a servant to keep it PG. But he was a slave. So I guess we're not keeping it PG. Um,
it was
and
giving
they do,
errand boy.
yeah, no, the way they present it and the way that the Bible does is, different.
And
But
up until this point, Donny Osmond has been fully clothed everyone.
up until this point, yes.
Up until
Oh,
this point. And
but
it's
yeah,
done.
so he's doing his thing that with Potiphar, and then Potiphar's wife, another female character who is not named, uh, but she's also not named in the Bible. So like, we'll give Andrew Lloyd Webber one there. Uh, Tamar that we skipped over, she was named, but no, we can't name her. She's a prostitute. We can't name a prostitute. Okay.
I mean,
Anyways,
would that have been better or worse, though, to have one named woman in the entire musical, and it's the prostitute who's impregnated by her father-in-law?
okay, she wasn't a prostitute. She pretended to be. I guess pretending to be a prostitute and being a prostitute are kind of the same thing.
Did she take the money?
Um, yeah, because that's how she proved that that Judah was the father because he was like, "Here's things with like my name on it," and she's like, "Thank you," and that's how it happened.
Intent
But
doesn't matter if you take the money, honey.
yeah, but they have a sister. They have a sister, Dina. She's never mentioned.
Oh, see, there were better options.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, how wild would that have been if they were like, we're going to name one woman, and it's
yeah,
going
yeah.
to be the woman who slept with her father-in-law?
Right. And then there's Rachel, like Joseph's mother. Like there's options. There are options that could have happened. It just didn't. But we get to Potiphar's wife, played by Joan Collins, who is in a very provocative outfit, not suited for children. And pretty much any new characters from this point on are in outfits that are not suited for children.
Honestly, it could have been so much worse. And I'm now imagining what the remake is going to have. Like, I think it'll be straight up pasties. I don't
Sure.
think we'll have any of this sheer tank toppiness to the dress. Um, but the song is for Potiphar is done in a 1920s Charleston style. And it's very fun because it's kind of that popping like Potiphar, da, 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 da. It's very
Yeah.
sexy, and Potiphar's wife is in an orgy. At least that's what it alludes to. And
Definitely.
Joseph comes in and he's like, I don't believe in free love.
Yeah, no, Potiphar's wife is trying to like have sex with Joseph, and Joseph's like, no, don't do it. We don't want to do it. And then Potiphar's wife frames it as if Joseph was the one coming onto her, and then Potiphar understandably gets very grumpy and puts Joseph in jail.
Yes, and this is just Donny Osmond in a skirt. So so
Yeah.
not women, but anyone, it gets distracting from here if you watch it because it is a younger Donny Osmond with a wig. By the way, I haven't even mentioned how much I love his wig. It is laid so well. I don't know if it's because it's not as high quality as we have nowadays to film. Um, but I mean, one of the things in like theater and stuff is if it looks good enough from 5 feet away, it's great.
Mhm.
Like it doesn't have to look phenomenal up close. So like I don't know what it looked like up close, but what they were recording, that wig, tremendous.
Yeah.
Applaud the hair department. It was so well blended. But yeah, you have a half naked Donny Osmond on stage in a cage.
Yeah, and that's where we are. And we sing the angsty song. We have to have an angsty song in a musical, and this is it, where Joseph's just kind of sad. He's like, "Oh no, all my doors are closed. What's going to happen? What are we going to do?"
I mean, could it be a musical without a dramatic ballad? I don't think so.
No, yeah, who knows?
He questions his importance, and it's the children are so overcome with sadness that they enter for a candlelight vigil
Yeah,
around him.
and this is probably one of his best performance, like the best vocal performances by Joseph or Donny Osmond here. So it's a good song. I like it.
Oh yeah, they had to showcase Donnie's vocals, and
Right.
you weren't gonna get that in. I'm looking at this. Yeah, you weren't gonna get that anywhere else. They were like, we just need
Yeah.
one song where we can show where this how this star shines.
But yeah, and then
Oh,
we do
I
that.
noticed at one point he says, "Just give me a number instead of my name."
Yeah, yeah. There's the occasional Holocaust reference in this movie, which like is done somewhat like it's never like directly referenced. Like this was made in the late '60s, early '70s, so like definitely World War II is much fresher on their minds than it is now. To some extent, it's always kind of on our minds to some extent in the global idea of the world. So like there are Holocaust references throughout. I forget what song later. Maybe I think it's in Stone the Crows, where they mention the Shoah, which is another word for the Holocaust. So like there are like the occasional reference, like but like and this is I think we really see the Jewishness of this in this song particularly. Like I think Andrew Lloyd Webber, like when he wrote this and all those things, like I think he was Christian, but this song or this musical uh, does kind of have focus on Judaism. Like a lot of movies, I that depict the Bible, you can either tell like, oh, this is a very Christian interpretation, this is a very Jewish interpretation, and we see the Bible like they have a physical Bible every once in a while, and it's very clearly a Christian Bible. So there's very clear references to like Christianity, like this is a Christian musical, but you also get instances like this where there's references to the Holocaust and Judaism, where it's like this is also a Jewish musical. And we get, I think, the final land. I have been promised a land of my own. This is this idea of Zionism that kind of has peaks here and there throughout this musical. So it's very, you know, I'm sure when they redo this, they're supposedly redoing this in a few years. I'm sure when they redo this, they'll have some interesting uh, choices to be made and how that's presented given the uh, current view on Zionism and all those things. So I'll be interested to see how they do that. But we get bits and pieces here and there.
Yeah, that will be really. I'm really excited for John Chu's take on this. I think I'm just excited for a modern version. Now that you've shown me this, I am probably going to have monthly watches.
Yeah, no, it's great. Just wait until you watch Jesus Christ Superstar. Like it's fascinating. And I know I don't understand musical stuff enough to like understand it, but people seem to hate on Andrew Lloyd Webber. Given the only thing I know about Andrew Lloyd Webber is Jesus Christ Superstar and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, I think he's great. Those are the only two I know, but they're fantastic.
There are layers to the Andrew Lloyd Webber drama. Um, the most recent layer in my mind is his musical Bad Cinderella, which
Okay.
did not do well. It
Well, yeah, he is old at this point.
it wasn't great. I honestly love a kitschy, corny little nod to a princess.
Mm,
But when I think of Andrew Lloyd Webber, I think of Phantom of the Opera.
mm,
And to think, and that is my exposure to him. So then watching this, I'm like, oh, how is this the same man? But then I
yeah.
think of the dramatics of the Phantom, and I'm like, oh, that's how. Like, it's very it it's the same drama, just in a different styles. And I really love it's not a jukebox musical, which is when you take like
No.
songs from an artist, but the variety of styles they sing in
Yeah.
adds so much to this musical.
Yeah, like there's no like they go back to back like just completely different styles. Like this next song, Go 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 Joseph, is like 1960s, 1970s, like whatever they're doing, and it's they're like go-go dancers, and it's just this exciting. It completely changes musical tone like every song, and I think that's part of the joy of it. I think that's part of like why it's kind of for kids because it's always like changing and keeping you on your toes, and I think that'll like attract kids a little bit more.
And you need to switch it up for kids. They
Mm,
can't keep focus on things for long. And
yeah,
to switch up the styles and keep them like on their toes is very important. But I also felt like the change and the shift in music was to also indicate the big shifts
yeah,
in like the tones of Joseph's life. Like when he went like it Jacob's world shattered
mm,
when he believed Joseph was dead. And so you kind that's like the first indication the music changes. And then you get to Potiphar and the Charleston style, the popping like oh, this is what I forgot to mention during Potiphar, the allusion to pyramid schemes.
oh
Um,
yeah,
made me giggle. But I think the music choices are to kind of also accentuate like
mm,
the feelings you're supposed to have about this part of the story. And the Charleston style is a little it had me like a little uneasy because I
mm,
didn't know what was going to happen next with the music. And
yeah,
then like the tempo grew and my heart started racing more. And then when we get to Go Go Joseph, I'm so happy and I'm excited because he just sang this very sad ballad.
yeah,
And now we're feeling this hope. And that's what Joseph's feeling. He's like, you know what? Maybe I'll get out of here. Maybe I'm going to die down in this second pit I've been thrown into.
yeah, yeah, and we see like other themes come across here too. We get him interpreting the butler's dream or the Jeeves of his time. I think that's funny. That's a dated reference that will certainly be updated for the next one. And then also the baker, and sadly, the dream of the baker says that he's going to die, and the dream of the butler or the cupbearer, if we want to keep it biblical, of Pharaoh, he'll be fine in like 3 days. So they go on and do that. One of the best scenes is when the narrator is singing between the legs of the butler. Hilarious. And he just kind of like steps over and he just looks so like uncomfortable. It's great. But they do the song, Joseph interprets their dreams, the go-go dancing comes along. We get the most color of the entire movie. I think at this point there's just color everywhere, fantastical costumes. Like it's hilarious. God comes out. I only assume that's what they intended with that guy. So this 1960s old gray bearded hippie God, and it's so funny. It's so good. And they're all just dancing and they're driving, and then they end with peace signs. Peace. So good.
Go, 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 Joseph. Da, 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 da. The choreography out of this world. It makes you want to get up and dance. It is the perfect ending for
Yeah.
Act One because you want to leave the audience in anticipation. What is going to happen during Act Two? I can't even imagine seeing this in a theater and the energy I would probably feel after that, and then like having to go through intermission, which if you've never been to watch a musical, intermission is usually like 10 minutes and maybe you gotta go pee, maybe you gotta go
Yeah.
get food.
I mean, this musical is so short. Like, I don't even know if they would have an intermission.
Really? I need an intermission because I need to digest.
Really, when I saw Jesus Christ Superstar live, they didn't have an intermission. So, and that one's longer than this one. Because I don't know what Andrew Lloyd Webber does, but I feel like it's short enough. I don't know. That's beside the
I
point.
I've I've just never been to one without an intermission, and I'm like, what would I do if I just had to sit there? Because I
Yeah.
mean, it isn't like a rough transition, but in the movie, we do head back into the auditorium
Mm.
to kind of signify that there's a shift and a change because the story is about to change again.
Yeah, it's just the narrator singing to the kids saying, "Hey, Joseph goes off to Pharaoh because Pharaoh's got dreams," and then we're kind of introduced to Pharaoh, who is Elvis. It-
So something weird about this part, I wasn't able to tell the difference between some of the songs. I wasn't able to tell when one stopped and the other began.
yeah, there's like three songs back to back to back that are all like Elvis themed. We have "Poor Poor Pharaoh," the song of the king, and then Pharaoh's Dream Explained. Um, I think Poor Poor Pharaoh is kind of just the introduction where the butler says, "I know of a bloke in jail," and it's that kind of part. And then Joseph comes out and is like, "Hey," and Pharaoh says, "I've got a dream," and he tells him his dreams. And Joseph says, like, "Tell me again, what's your dream?" And then when Joseph starts singing, we get Pharaoh's dream explained. Because at this point, Joseph has to go check the Bible that the narrator is holding to be like, "What does this dream mean?" Which is so funny. It's a great breaking of the fourth wall. It happens so much in this movie that Joseph is going to check the Bible. In the Potiphar song, the narrator says it's all in Genesis 39, which it is, and it's just there's so many like breaking of the fourth walls. It's just so funny and so perfectly made.
We love when the fourth wall shatters. And I love the way they tell you Pharaoh is Elvis. The way they approach this Pharaoh as Elvis thing. Number one, they take off his hat and you see the
Yeah,
hair, and you're like, oh. And then my mom pointed out he's wearing blue suede shoes, which is an Elvis song. And if you
yeah.
look behind him, he has the gate with music notes, which is famously what the gate to Graceland looks like.
Mm.
And so there's no questioning. There's no being like, what other rock star could this be? No, it's Elvis, babe.
Yeah.
And it is so fun. It is such a fun opening, like second act song to, and now we have Elvis, which then carries on to the second theme of the Pharaoh and Egypt stuff, but we'll get to that later.
Mm.
Um, I really did like that Joseph, they had Joseph be like, what was that dream again? Can you run that by me one more time? Because that was very confusing and complicated.
Yeah.
Because it was a lot. I feel like it's the longest dream you hear in the show.
Yeah. Well, it's two dreams back to back. And then Joseph says, "Well, they're one and the same because they mean the same thing." Which is interesting if we want to go from a literary standpoint. We get Joseph having two dreams at the beginning with um, the sheaves of corn and the stars in the sky. You get two dreams there, and then with Pharaoh, you get two dreams of the cows and the um, what's his second dream? It was wheat, wasn't it? Wheat,
Yeah.
cows and wheat. Yeah. So like it's just that like it's the film or the story is pushed along by sets of two dreams. You get the baker and the butler's two dreams at the same time. So it's just two dreams at a time how the story moves along. And I think is fascinating literally, but that's beside the point. And
And
yeah, the next song where it kind of like moves on from that, the Stone the Crows, that's where we get the reference to the Shoah, which is very, if you don't like know, if you're not looking for it, like it'll just like go over your ears. It's the greatest man since Noah only goes to Shoah, which is if you're paying attention, you'll see it, but if you're not, it'll just go right over.
that is lyrically wild.
Yeah,
That is so wild. And another wild choice, all of the Egyptian women are horny for Joseph.
yeah, no, and their outfits are quite revealing as well.
Yeah. I did notice this time watching through the blue girls at the very beginning when you first see them, they're holding pom-poms.
Yeah,
I didn't notice it till my second watch through. I love the costuming. It's very stereotypical, the costuming they did for the Elvis Egypt
mm,
part, but it's so fun. It's so vibrant. It really is a movie for the whole family
yeah,
because it keeps you engaged. And luckily, though, it doesn't seem like it's going to go the same way for Joseph with the Pharaoh as it did with Potiphar. Like the Pharaoh does kind of get a little like, oh, well, I'm the one who hired him.
hmm
Well, I'm the one who found him.
yeah.
but he seems more secure in himself.
Yeah, so then we get the kind of connection song where the narrator says, "Hey, what about Joseph's brothers? You remember them?" So we kind of go back to the uh, uh, the brothers back in Canaan, and this is 7 years later, apparently. Well, as we can assume, because we're in a famine time and we're French.
Yes, a beautiful French ballad parody. And it took me a second to like register that's what it was, but it reminded me of in Be Our Guest in Beauty and the Beast. Lumiere has a small part where he's like, for years we've been resting, needing so much more than dusting. And it reminded me of that. And I was like, okay, we have a French ballad. It's very dramatic. And then a woman comes out and does this beautiful dance
Mhm.
with them, and it's very sad.
Yeah, slightly revealing. They cover Benjamin's eyes at one point, which another silly goofy.
Was Benjamin the youngest? Because he's
Yeah,
giving youngest. Okay.
yeah.
What were when they sang the order of the brothers? Was that in order of age?
I don't think so. If I remember, I don't remember how they sing their order. They start with Reuben, who is the oldest, but I think they end with like Judah in there. But Judah is one of the oldest. It goes Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulon, Joseph, and Benjamin. uh, and as I said, like that might change in some of the sources, but that's like the generally accepted
Is
ordering
Dan
of the
short
kids.
for anything?
No, just Dan.
Just-
Dan. It's funny. It's funny with some of these biblical names because a lot of times they're like it's just this combination of sounds that like doesn't make sense to English, but some names we just kind of like pick up as like, oh no, we're gonna make this a modern English name, and we're just not really gonna change it. Like this is gonna be like Adam, like that's it's a Hebrew word, and then we're like, Adam's gonna be a name. That's just a name. Enough said. But like you're not meeting very many Nebuchadnezzars around the place. Like
No, I would love to meet a Nebuchadnezzar though.
yeah.
And I want to know what nicknames you go by. I know you're out there. There's got to be one.
There's got to
There's
be some at least. Yeah.
there's got to be one. And they end those Canaan days to really emphasize we're in a famine. You see sheep skeletons roll out onto stage.
Yeah. And they eat a fly.
Yep. Oh, and the narrator comes out with a chicken wing,
Yeah.
which that isn't the first time in the musical the narrator has food. At one
Listen,
part,
she's just having the time of her life, and you can't judge her for that. Like she's not part of the story. She's gonna eat her chicken wing if she wants to eat a chicken wing. She's not in the famine. She's interpreting the story for us. And if she's got a chicken wing, she's gonna eat that chicken wing.
I didn't see myself in the children as they were so excited at every part of the story. I saw myself as the narrator
Yeah, oh,
because,
yeah.
I would be reading about people going hungry and being like, ooh, wings. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Or I at one point she was holding a drink and a donut and I was
Yeah.
like, yes.
No, she's very often like holding like a alcoholic beverage or something. Like she's having the time of her life.
And you should enjoy yourself while reading
Yeah.
and narrating. So then the brothers decide we should go to Egypt because, we hear they have food stocked up there.
I want before we do that, I want to do a slight biblical detour that I think is worth bringing up. I don't necessarily we'll comment on it, but I think it's fun to bring up because I don't know if this was an intentional choice made by the writers of this. But at one point there's a line that says, "Do you remember those wonderful parties, the splendor of Canaan's cuisine, those extravagant, elegant soirees, the gayest the Bible has seen?" Which obviously gay being happy and whatnot. But there's also a tradition in some queer studies of biblical interpretation that kind of look at Joseph as a queer figure and use him to kind of help a queer interpretation of the Bible. And I don't necessarily find this entirely convincing from a biblical study standpoint. As an interpretation standpoint, I think this is on par with any other, Christian or Jewish interpretation of the Bible, like using the text in a way to create meaning of your own. I think throughout the Bible, Christians, conservative, liberal, however, use the Bible to create these interpretations and make sense of the world, and it's not a stretch from how other pieces of the Bible get interpreted. But they kind of use this as a queer interpretation on two main parts, saying that, as I mentioned previously, with the translation of the multicolored coat or the ornamental coat, if we see that as garb for a princess, what a princess wears, what these queer interpretations, and I've never really studied queer theory or anything like that, so take me with a grain of salt. But they take this as kind of interpretation that one of the reasons that the brothers are so mad at Joseph is because he's cross-dressing. He might be acting as a figure who is perhaps not straight in some way, perhaps transgender. Those are the claims that are being made by those. And then we also see this as Joseph interacts with Potiphar's wife, as he's very reluctant. He doesn't want to have sexual relationships with Potiphar's wife. And we're seeing this as another example of him not perhaps being completely straight. I don't see this as historically or literarily probable. I do see it as possible, though. So it's worth noting, especially if you're interested in queer interpretation of the Bible, that can be applied here every once in a while, and there's interesting resources on this as well.
No, I really like that. And I've never heard it before, but when you had said that the word meant like dressing for a princess, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, so he's fabulous. We love that.
Yeah.
Like, or maybe he just decided he was more comfortable in the more splendidly colored garments.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, again, this is where interpretation plays a much bigger role than uh, historical critical
Yeah.
analysis. But yeah, it definitely, I think, is worth noting.
Yeah, no, I see that. And I see the thing with Potiphar's wife. I also see him just being a good boy and knowing
Yeah,
how to survive in this situation.
yeah, because like the Bible tends to present Joseph as being very pious and very, very much um, like doing as he should do. So that could also likely be what he's doing. More likely that reading than the other. But again, possible and worth. If that interpretation creates meaning for you, then great. I think use that however you will. I think there's multiple ways to read all of these texts, and they're not all mutually exclusive.
I mean, I think that's a fun interpretation, and I'd see that stage show too.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Okay. Uh, no, sorry. My brain's going a million other places now too. Wow. So, but the brothers decide to go to Egypt
Right.
and they are going to grovel because they are like, we need to eat. We
Yeah.
need food. They have a stockpile in Egypt. Let's go there. And Joseph kind of gets his moment and he's like, you don't recognize me? Well, you know what? I'm going to be real good to you. And the choreography of
Mm-hmm.
him stepping over each brother. And as I noted earlier, the brothers all had eyeliner, and now Joseph has the most eyeliner
Yeah.
because he is dressed up almost identical to the Pharaoh.
Mm-hmm. And they're all bowing to him as the dream foresaw. So definitely all happening there. I will note that in the Bible, at this point, the stories kind of converge. There's a lot more stuff happening in the Bible that they didn't have time to really fit in here, but for the most part, they follow like for example, initially, all of the sons except for Benjamin go to Joseph, and then they end up talking, and Joseph again, like here, is like, "Hey, are you guys spies? Are you spies?" And they're like, "No, no, we're not spies." And then he locks them up in prison for a few days, and he's like, "Go get your youngest brother to prove that you're not a spy." And then they go get Benjamin and bring him back, and then Jacob or Israel, however you want to name it at this point, is like, "Oh no, don't kill my favorite son because my first favorite son's already dead. He better not die." This is like 20 or 30 years in the future at this point, but we're still hung up on Joseph. Um, So, there's a little more drama happening here than in the musical, but for the most part, it follows. Not
Yeah.
in tone, not in tone. It doesn't
No.
follow the tone of the Bible, but it does follow uh, the events as well as it can.
Yeah, definitely a different tone in the musical. Because in your head, I want you to sit and think, and you're like, Elvis, Egypt, what else could be put in? A casino. The
Yeah,
food comes out of a coin slot machine. It's giving Vegas, which
definitely.
I guess we can associate all three of those things together. I do. I
For
mean,
sure, yeah.
I love the Luxor in Vegas, and I think of Elvis. And I got married by an Elvis impersonator who wasn't dressed up as Elvis that day, but his hair had been done like he had done it earlier in the day. So yes, definitely. It's very fun. It's very much Joseph getting his just desserts
Yeah.
when his brothers are groveling, and
Mhm.
he gives them the food, and Benjamin is, oh, I forgot the word. Framed.
Accused.
Benjamin is
Framed.
framed.
He is framed.
Joseph frames Benjamin by putting his favorite cup
Mhm.
in Benjamin's pail. And I get it. I too have a favorite cup. You can't just go framing people though, Joe. You can't.
Sure, sure, valid. Uh, he used a gold cup here in the Bible. He used a silver cup, but I'll let it slide. I'll let that one slide.
Of all the inaccuracies,
Yeah, of all the inaccuracies, this one's the worst. But now,
how dare. And you immediately, again, we have an immediate tone shift after Who's the Thief. We get some calypso music.
yeah,
Were
we're, we're
you
in the
expecting that?
we're in the Caribbean.
I wasn't expecting that. I was not expecting steel drums.
No, no, it was a change and shift. So a change in tone for sure, but a fun song. Again, the narrator having the time of her life yet again with her fancy alcoholic beverage, just enjoying life. Good for
Oh no,
her.
take me. It's and it you see something different from Joseph's brothers. They're like, Take one of us." Like that's Benjamin. Like that's little Benjamin. That's Dad's second favorite. Like you
Yeah,
can't have him. And honestly, if I was Joseph, I would have been like, "Oh, you guys really suck." I wouldn't have killed Benjamin, but I definitely would have like hidden him away for the rest of his life.
sure.
Yeah, just so they could deal with those consequences. But I might be vindictive.
Maybe. Who can say? But yeah, no, eventually, they convince Joseph that like, oh no, we've changed, we're good people now. And Joseph forgives them, and he's like, oh my goodness, I'm actually Joseph, I'm your brother, you remember me? And they're like, oh my goodness, of course we remember you. We tried to kill you. So they seeing that, and they're all good. They have a big dance, and it's a party, and we're so excited, and there's children in colorful outfits, and it's all great. We're happy. Woo! Problem solved. Um, so yeah, and then they bring Jacob over to Egypt, which is great. And then Jacob falls. Oh no, can't have Jacob falling. But he gives Joseph his coat back. He gets his coat back. Yay!
Hey,
Not in the Bible.
what?
He doesn't get his coat back in the Bible.
What was the point?
Yeah, I know. I know.
If he's not getting the coat back, what's the point? Like, what purpose is this story supposed to have without the coat?
Sure. Maybe it's a story of like follow your dreams and like this is the problem with sibling rivalries and stuff like that. But I guess the coat is more important.
Thank you
Yeah.
for acknowledging that. It's it's such a fun musical to deliver those messages, and it does get distracting from time to time to listen to the words, like the sad ballad I had to watch a few times because I was distracted by Donny Osmond's naked chest. And that is the point in which I'm like, is this a children's musical? But it's fine.
Who can say? Yeah.
Who can say? Um, no, thank you so much for sharing this.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's great. I think everyone should watch it. It's and there's so much happening. Like I think it's so easy to watch movies now and just, oh, it's a movie. It'll entertain me. And it will entertain you, but there's always, if it's a good movie, there's always more stuff to it that is like very intentional by the creators of it. And I think this one does that well. Like the final song, um, the Any Dream Will Do and the Give Me My Colored Coat, they're directly addressing the camera at this point. It's like they're looking right at us, like, okay, these are the things that you should remember. Dream, have a dream. And it's like this is the point of the musical, which, like, cool, great, love it. And then it closes. The closing shot is the Star of David, and we get that sense of like Zionism again. And this is a Jewish interpretation, a Jewish story, which again, there's so many anachronisms, like they have telephones and stuff like that. They're just inserted. And to me, like, it's funny that the Star of David is inserted in here because this is well before David was had been born. So I think even the fact that there's like stars of David in here is funny, because I don't think that's what they thought about when they closed with the Star of David. I think they were making perhaps a Zionist claim of some sort, or just a Jewish claim, perhaps. But it's just funny. There's so much happening with these films.
I didn't even think about that because, as we have discussed, I don't understand who was born when.
Yeah.
I don't understand the timeline of any of the Old Testament. I fear I should know more. Um, no, but that again, I'm going to use the word wild because David wasn't even born. There is no Star of David.
But yeah. So I'm hoping that we do more episodes like this. I think it's so exciting to, especially to see how pop culture is handling religion. And I hope we can. Like, I'm interested in your thoughts here. Like, is this a religious film or is this depicting religion? How because I don't feel like I want to answer that. I feel like I think this is a good conversation to start, and I don't really want to like put my thoughts out there. I want that to be what we think about when we address media that has religious undertones. Is this a religious film, or is this just depicting religion, or is there something else? So I'm interested in your thoughts, but I'm going to stay quiet here.
Before I answer, I do want to say I think that things that handle religion, when they handle them with a sense of humor and and they aren't so strict and rigid,
Hmm.
they are more widely appealing
Yeah, much
and
more palpable to the average person. Yeah.
much more palpable, and not to do that necessarily to spread a specific message, but because I think we can all learn from each other. And I
Hmm.
think we can all learn from stories from different religions. And if we do it in a way that appeals to a wide audience, that doesn't make it less religious.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, but I will say this specific piece. It it feels really 50-50 to me.
Hmm.
It does because I do know Donnie and Marie, Donnie's sister, had a religious upbringing. And there were certain choices made, like the Star of David, that lead me to lean more. It is a religious film, but I think, my gosh, this is why is this such a difficult question?
I think if as we watch more and more films, we'll see that it's a very difficult question with so many films. Like, it's a valid question. I think that's like one of the easiest questions to ask and one of the hardest questions to answer. But I think it's worth thinking about because if we think about that, I think it'll put a lot into frame a different way. Like, oh, was that a religious choice? Was that just showing religion?
Because I definitely think the Journey to Bethlehem that we watched last year uh, was a religious film.
Hmm.
And this depicted religion. I think this depicted religion, and there were some people on the set who are of that religion, but ultimately there were some costuming and directorial choices that I think may separate it a little in my mind.
Mhm.
So I'm going to make that claim now. As we watch more, I may change my stance,
Perfect.
but I wanted to give you a answer and not dance around it because I think that's where I'm at now. I could change and grow, guys. I could
Hopefully.
change and grow.
Yeah. No, for sure. But no, I think as we watch any religious or non-religious media, asking that question, is this religious or just depicting religion? I think is an important and good question. So hopefully, I'm hoping that we do more like this. I had a great time talking about um, Joseph. I'm hoping that we watch something that I haven't seen yet. I have seen Joseph. I don't know how many times. It's so good, but for sure, I'm excited. I don't know if you want to do more of this, but I'm hoping that we will.
Do I want to do more of this, Matthew? You've never watched Prince of Egypt.
I no, I
The
haven't seen
minute it is on streaming,
that.
we are recording an episode because Steve Martin and Martin Short play the Pharisees, and it's so fun.
I've read about it. Have read about like Val Kilmer plays both Moses and God. I think that's an interesting choice. We'll talk about that when that gets there, but I think that'll be a conversation for another day.
It
Um,
will.
but yeah, let us know if you enjoyed this. Let us know what movies you want us to watch in the comments or email us. Please email us or comment. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, X, um, Facebook, TikTok,
Bluesky.
Spotify, Bluesky, YouTube. We're on all the places. Let us know what you think. And on Apple, we're also on Apple. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Email us your favorite song. I need to know. I need to know everyone's favorite song. And I need
From
to start
Joseph.
charting it from Joseph.
Yeah.
I need to know everyone's favorite song or choice. Like if there was a parody song that you really enjoyed, I must know.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
Perfect.